Hello, children. Today we try to revise the basic concept of loop. Okay, so here we start. Now, when we talk about a loop in any programming language, what does we actually mean by that? When we say that we want to write something, a statement, a program statement, which should repeat itself, which should keep on executing itself, right? Then, for that particular purpose, we create a loop. That is, I want specific number of times that statement should be repeated, or based on any condition. Like after executing the statement, it asks me, do you want to continue? If I say yes, then it should continue executing that statement again, otherwise, it should stop, right? So, when these kind of situations we have to execute in a programming environment, we create loops, right? The way we talk about a game which is like, I think, hoopla, which is like a loop, circular thing, a ring. It is circular because you go round and round and round and round, like that. Okay? But here it's only not going round and round and round. It is that it has to be done a particular number of times based on the count or based on a condition, right? So Python provides you two kinds of looping statements. One is called the for loop and the other is called the while loop. For is called the counting loop and while loop is called as the conditional loop. Okay. When you talk about a for loop, or rather, I should first understand what a counting loop is. When I say a counting and conditional, what's the difference? In the case of a counting loop, I would be able to define the number of times my loop should execute. That means I know the count, the number of times my loop should run. My statement should execute. Maybe 5 times, maybe 10 times, maybe 20 times, but I am aware of the count. When I'm aware of the count, I go for a for loop. Generally, when I am not aware of the count and it is based on a condition, just the way I gave you the example a few minutes back, that I am asking the user, do you want to continue? If he says yes, so the continuity depends upon his saying yes. Based on that condition, either I continue or I stop. So it might be that the user stops just after one execution, or the user stops after 50 executions, or the user says, no, I don't want to continue after 100 executions. So that is why here we don't know that how many times will the loop execute, and it is conditional based. Hence, we call it a conditional loop. Okay. So let us start up with how exactly a loop is written. So what's the syntax of a loop statement? As you see on the screen, we write here the for loop, a variable in range. Then again in brackets we have certain values, colon, and then with an indent with a space in the next line, we specify the statements to be repeated or the loop body as we call it. Okay. Now this has a lot of elements in it. It's not that simple to understand this. So let's go step by step. Now the first thing we understand is that now if I want to write a loop, I need to tell my machine that what do you want to repeat? What are the statements you want to repeat? Definitely that. So that is this particular thing, which is called as my loop body. Second is how do you want to repeat it? That is how many times do you want to repeat it in this case. Now, when you talk about how many times you want to repeat it, that count has to be maintained somewhere in the system, in the memory, so that system can check Have I reached that count? Have I reached that count? If not, I continue. Have I reached that count? No. If not, I continue. That means there has to be somebody keeping track of that count. Right now, in machine, whatever you want him to store, maybe the count or maybe something else, I have something called as a variable in order to do so for a programming language. And this variable is nothing but a memory area defined by a name. Okay, so here I put any variable name. You all are aware of the variable naming conventions. You know that, okay, these are the rules for naming a variable. So based on that rule, you define any variable and you put it here. That is actually called as a counter variable here, because he's keeping the count. Like if I ask you to do sit-ups and I maintain the count on my fingers, okay, 1 2 3 4, so my fingers are keeping the count, right? So in this case also I need somebody to keep my count, and that variable is this particular counter variable, as we call it here. Now when you want the count to happen, the count to be counted, okay, so in that case the counting has to have a pattern. I go 1 2 3 4 5 6 7. I go 7 6 5 4 3 2 1. I go 1 3 5 7 9. I go 9 7 5 3 1. You understanding what I'm trying to say? I'm trying to say that there has to be a pattern of that counting. And to generate that pattern of count, which starts from a particular point, goes to a particular point, and either you increment the values one by one or you decrement the values one by one. Okay, so to design this kind of a pattern, Python provides you with a very, very efficient function that's called the range function. As you see it here, it's called the range function. Okay, we talk about the range function in detail, but just in the next slide. But here I would like to specify that this range function actually lets you specify the values of your count, and it's completely your wish the way you want to generate the values of your count. Once step by step you are generating the count, the value is getting stored in the variable, and based on that the execution is happening. Okay, so here we first understand the range function, because if I'm not sure how to develop the range function, how to write the range function, then my counting will go wrong. Okay, so I should know how to write my range function correctly, so that the numbers or the counts being generated is correct, and hence the loop also executes correctly. Okay, so here I start that range talks about three inputs, as you see here, but you see certain square brackets and all, which has a special meaning. By square brackets and mean, I mean here that these two things are optional. So the start value with a comma and a comma with a step value, as I want to specify, is optional. Stop is compulsory. So that is one value in the range function has to be given, based on which the counting will stop. That is, at what place do you want the counting to stop? That I definitely has to have to specify. What is optional is from where to start. So if I don't mention from where to start, it starts from 0. It mentions here. Sorry, it starts from 0. Okay, and if I don't give the step, that is uh, how to go to the next value in the range, that is as per the step value. So if the step is not mentioned, then the value is incremented by 1. So by default, the value is incremented by 1 in every iteration. By iteration, I mean the way the loop is executing step by step. Every step is called as iteration of the loop. Okay. So if the loop is executing 10 times, we say that there are 10 iterations happening in this loop. Okay, there are a few more rules which you have to remember, that all the parameters in the range has to be integers. If by chance I mention any float value, that is number with decimal point, it is not acceptable. Okay, The step parameter, this is the parameter I'm talking about, fourth point. It can be a positive value, a negative value, positive or a negative value, but it cannot be a zero. Fine. So these are the specifications of the range function, which helps me generate various kinds of number patterns. Now, in order to understand that, let's take up some examples. Like for example, I'm saying range 4. So this is supposed to be what? I just now told you that whatever is one value, if you're specifying in the range, that will be considered as the stop value, because that's essential. You have to give that. So if this be so, this be the stop value, then where is my start? From where do I start? I start from 0. That's the default thing. Until where do I go? I go till the stop value, excluding the stop value. This is a very, very significant point. If I say range 4, I go till 3. I go counting till 3. But from where? From 0. And every time, what is the next number? Plus 1. Because again, step value is missing. So before 4, 0 is assumed as a start value. After 4, 1 is assumed as the step value. So hence it will generate 0, then 1, then 2, then 3. So if you make the loop run uh, based on these range values, then the loop runs how many times? 4 times. Of course, I would prefer counting from 1 to 4 rather than from 0 to 3. But for the machine, it hardly matters because he is just counting. Whether you make him count 4 to 1 or 1 to 4 or 0 to 3, the count is 4. Main purpose is that he has to count uh, 4 in order to make the loop run 4 times. Okay, but there are certain rules of range function which we have to remember, that if that whatever stop value I'm giving, it goes one less than that. That's the most important thing. Okay, now this one, range 392. Start from 3, go till 1 less than 9, but every time increment by 2. So start from 3, okay, 3 is the first value. Start value is always there. So 3 is the first value. Then as per the step value, I go adding 2 to it. So 3 plus 2, 5. 5 is the next value. Plus 2, 7. Plus 2, 9. I cannot go till 9. I have to go less. 1 less. For me, it's 1 less. That is, it should not touch that value. But here it is up to 7 only. After that, it is incrementing and going to 9. So I cannot have that. Okay. So 3, 5, 7 are the numbers generated if I write like this. Now another thing, 10, 0, minus 2. Again, you have to remember one catchword. If the stop value is more than the start value, I again repeat, if the stop value is more than the start value, then after every incrementation or the change in the value based on the step value, I ask the question, is the number less than the stop value? Okay. So for a positive step value to work, stop value should be more than the start value. Whereas it goes just the reverse when you talk about a negative step value. Or I say that I want to go from a higher number to a lower number, then the step value has to be minus. And then every time, what am I asking? The question what I'm asking based on which I'm deciding whether I continue or I stop. Right? So that happens that first it supposedly says 10. Okay, so 10. Is 10 greater than my stop value? Here I was asking, is 3 less than my stop value? Right? So if it is going in the positive direction, it is always asked, is it less than the stop value? Is it less than the stop value? If it is going in the reverse direction towards the smaller number, so then I'll be asking, is my number greater than the stop value? So you continue till it is greater than the stop value. So 10 is greater than 0, hence 10 is picked up. Then minus 2 makes it 8. Is 8 greater than 0? Yes. So it's picked up. Then it becomes 6. Is it greater than 0? Yes. Then it becomes 4. Is it greater than 0? Yes. Then it becomes 2. Is it greater than 0? Yes. Then it becomes 0. 2 minus 2. Last number generated 2. Then minus 2 becomes makes it 0. Is it greater than 0? No, it is equal to 0. So condition is false and it stops. Okay. In this example, next one you see start is given, stop is given, step is not given. So what will be assumption for the step value? The assumption will be 1. So you start from 5, go till 1 less than 10 and every time increment the value by 1. So it's 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay. Entire thing negative minus 2 plus minus 2, that will become minus 4. Minus 2 is minus 4. So it goes till minus 12. But if I say minus 10 minus 2, that becomes minus 12. So it doesn't touch the upper limit, hence it stops here. It will not go further. Okay, so these are the few examples of range function. You can try out with various inputs of range function and see that how will it actually work. But for that we have to implement it using a for loop in order to check. Like here we see the first example. For counter variable which is named as a in the range of values 1 comma 11, print a. Two very significant points, colon in the first line of for, or we say the for header, colon, this is not written, then the syntax goes wrong. And next line there has to be an indent, which when you type in Python automatically it is given. But then when you write it in the exam paper, you have to ensure that you put that space. Okay, so you put that space and then you write. The indentation means this line or this statement is within the for loop. It's not outside the for loop. Moment you are back to the line of indent below for means this statement, whatever you write here, will be outside the for loop. Okay. So here the range function generates numbers till 1, starting from 1 and up till 11. So 1 less than that. So that is 10. So 1 to 10 numbers are generated. How to step up? Every time increment by 1, because nothing is mentioned. So every time increment by 1. Plus 1. So 1, then 2, then 3, then 4, then 5. Accordingly 10. And whatever number has been generated in A, because of the range function, step by step, print is printing those values one by one by one. So first value is A is 1. Is it less than 11? Yes. Comes inside, print A. So 1 is printed. So it goes up, increments the value of A by 1, checks. Is it less than 11? Yes. Comes inside, condition is 2. And then print A. So 2 is printed. Like that, the whole specification is executed step by step. Okay. Now here we see another example where I'm saying start from 0, go till 10, increment by 3 every time. And these numbers are generated use the help of range function and one by one stored in X. And in the loop body, I'm printing the value of X. Okay. So first value being generated is 0. 0 plus 3, 3. Yeah, the next value is 3. You can see here in the output. Next 3 plus 3, 6. 6 plus 3, 9. Every time the value is less than 10, so it was executing. Now when 9 plus 3, it becomes 12. Then the condition becomes false. It's not any more less than 10. Hence it stops. Okay. So that is why this is how we learn about a basic execution of loops. We actually have done many tasks in our classes, but I would just like to do these two tasks in order to make the thing more clear to you. Okay, so I just kind of move on to my next part of share screen, that is I start my ideally in order to do so. And after opening my Python, I want to say maybe the second task, print all odd numbers from 1 to 20. So obviously I'll go file, new file, because I want to work in the script mode. So I come here and then I start. I want to print odd numbers from 1 to 20. So when I say odd numbers from 1 to 20 means what? It will be 1, 3, 5, 7, increment of 2 every time, right? So I go saying for a in range start from 1 go till 21, or maybe 20, because 20 is not an odd number. So I can go to 20 here, and because I don't want to print 20 actually, odd numbers till 1 to 20 is up till 19 only. So in this case 20 will absolutely work, and every time increment by 20. So I put a bracket, put my colons. Yeah, okay. And then when I press enter, just see the indent. Automatically it is displayed a little indented position. Okay. Now I put the value of a here. So just let me quickly save the file with some random specification. Let's execute. So I'm getting all my my odd numbers from 1 to 19. Okay. Now here we can make certain variations, that suppose I want user to enter the value from where to start and the upper limit, that till where you want to print the uh, odd numbers. Okay. So let us try out that part also, that I accept from the user till where do you want to print. So as usual, I accept using my int input, and I say enter the upper limit as to where you want to print, till where. Instead of 20, I just have to replace it by m. Okay. And now because I don't know whether this upper limit is an odd number or not, what the user is giving, so preferably make it m plus 1, so that if m is an odd number, he will print till m. If it is an even number, he'll go 1 plus and then not print that value. So my problem is solved. Okay. So let us try this too. This is making the program more user friendly, in the sense I ask him till where you want, and then accordingly the program works, rather than being a static output always. So my upper limit is supposedly 10. Okay. So it prints me till 9. Fine. So that is how. Let us try out something in the reverse order. So I ask him that enter the lower limit of value from where do you want to string, and let me go from that number up till maybe 0, and every time decrement the number by 2. Let us try this out. So this is the way you're going to try out variations and see that how it works. So suppose I'm saying please go from 8, start from 8 and print till 0. That's my need. And increment by, decrement by 2. So this is how you'll get. So by adding input statement to your program, you're making the program work according to your requirements. But the basic fundamental of the range value remains same, from where to start, where to go, and how do you change the value step by step. Either you are incrementing or you are decrementing. Okay, so this is the basic concept of loop. I'm not doing difficult tasks. That's for you to experiment. And the next video, maybe I'll go a little more step further, explaining the more complex loops, and we do proper dry run for that too. Okay, so bye bye, see you next.